Jerusalem Day is coming up, and as always, the Palestinians are throwing a fit about the annual flag march that takes place. In a disgusting display of anti-Semitism, the Tunisian president compared the Jewish state to Nazis just 4 days after a terror attack outside of a synagogue in Tunisia. The IDF hosted 9 ambassadors from the UN, and thank God, Rabbi Avraham Paley was just released from the hospital. I'm Justin, and this is the Israel Guys. Hello and welcome to the Israel Guys, where we believe that in a world of Jew hatred and anti-Israel propaganda, you should have a direct connection to the land and people of Israel. Welcome back to the show, guys. It's great to be back with you today. So, as most of you guys probably know, Jerusalem Day is coming up. It's actually just in a few days. It is on Friday, May 19th. It's just a spectacular, amazing time of unification, of celebration, where the people of Israel just come together to celebrate the reunification and the liberation of Jerusalem. But not everybody in Israel is always happy about Jerusalem Day, as it should be, but the Arabs seem to always make a huge fuss about it, and they always whine about Jerusalem Day because they do not like the idea of Israel celebrating their one and only capital. And I believe that deep down, the Arabs living in Israel, or even living in Judea and Samaria, they know deep down that Jerusalem is the eternal capital of Israel, and that it will never be Al-Aqsa, and it will never be a capital of Palestine. It will never be a divided capital. It is the eternal capital of Israel. While they won't celebrate Jerusalem Day, of course, they would gladly celebrate Nakba Day, which just happened, and it commemorates basically the catastrophe of the founding of Israel. Luke talked about on the show yesterday about how the UN is they held an event for Nakba Day. Rashida Tlaib, she tried to make an event at the White House, but thankfully Kevin McCarthy canceled the event. Thankfully, great. So on Jerusalem Day, every single year, there's usually a flag march. Last year it started at the Damascus Gate and it went all the way to the Western Wall. We actually got to be a part of it last year. We were there, just hundreds of thousands of people marching and celebrating the liberation of Jerusalem, marching to the Western Wall. It's an absolutely amazing time of year, but as you can well imagine, the news media got it all wrong and they called the march a riot. Yep, you heard me right. They called it a riot. And also last year, Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh, he said this. He said, quote, "I want to clearly warn the enemy against committing these crimes and these steps." The crime of marching in their eternal capital, celebrating the liberation of Jerusalem, that is now a crime. He went on to say, "The Palestinian people, led by the resistance, especially those in the West Bank and Jerusalem, will not permit this Jewish Talmudic rubbish to go unanswered. We will resist with all our capabilities, and we will not permit the violation of the Al-Aqsa Mosque or thuggery in the streets of Jerusalem." That's what Hamas thought about the march last year. And 2 years ago, there was during Jerusalem Day, we were actually there in the streets of Jerusalem, and sirens started sounding in the streets of Jerusalem. People had to clear off the streets, run to the nearest bomb shelters, and just mainly get off the streets because Hamas fired 6 rockets at Jerusalem. So this year, what is Hamas saying? What is Hamas saying about this march, about Jerusalem Day in general? This is reading from Arutz Sheva. They said, "The Hamas terrorist organization called on Arabs to converge on the Al-Aqsa Mosque on Thursday morning to combat Israel's Jerusalem Day celebrations, including the annual flag march to the Western Wall, while threatening violence in response to the march." Also, Ali Baraka, the Hamas representative in Lebanon, he warned that, quote, "Any violation of our red lines will mean that the resistance will have a say." Terrorism. If they say resistance, you can automatically translate it in your Muslim translator. You can translate it to say terrorism. He also called the flag march, quote, "a provocation against the Palestinian people and a violation of the sanctity of Al-Aqsa." Wow. Also, Hamas spokesman Hazem Qassem, he said that the so-called Zionist flag march is part of the religious war waged by the Israeli occupation against the Blessed Al-Aqsa Mosque and occupied Jerusalem's Arab identity. The Israeli occupation's policy of Judaizing occupied Jerusalem will not alter its Arab character. The Palestinian people will continue their legitimate rights to resistance against the Israeli occupation's malicious schemes. The Palestinian people, they do not have a legitimate right to commit terrorism, as the Hamas spokesman is saying. Also, he's talking about the Israeli occupation policy of Judaizing Jerusalem. How can you Judaize Jerusalem when it is 100% Jewish? It always has been and always will be. How can you even Judaize it? That absolutely does not make sense. Thankfully, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, the other day, he stated that the flag march would, as usual, be held in the route, which it usually does, which includes passing through the Muslim quarter of Jerusalem's Old City. Thousands of Jews will participate in the celebratory march, which will end at the Western Wall on Thursday evening. Absolutely amazing march. So, I have a question for you. Have we ever seen any Jewish leaders saying any of this vile hatred like the Hamas leaders, like the Palestinian leaders are saying here? Have we seen any Jewish leaders saying things like this during the Muslim holidays, during Ramadan? Absolutely not. We've not seen anything like this. This is absolutely ridiculous that the world would even allow this and that the UN would celebrate Nakba Day. And it's just absolutely crazy. The world is coming to a very crazy place. Guys, we're going to talk about what the Tunisian government really thinks about Jews. But first, if you're enjoying our content, make sure to hit that subscribe button here if you're watching on YouTube. Also, like and share our content so we can reach as many people as possible with the truth about what is actually happening in Israel. Guys, there's not much truth coming out of Israel. The leftist media is spewing out anti-Israel propaganda all the time. So we would really appreciate if you would do your part and hit subscribe. Also, go check us out on our other social media pages on the major platforms. Give us a follow there. We would really, really appreciate it. So here's what the Tunisian government really thinks about Jewish people. Last week, as you might have heard, 6 people were shot outside of a synagogue. There was a terror attack. Tunisia's president blamed, quote, criminals seeking to harm the tourism sector. That's what he said. This is according to Reuters. 2 Jewish cousins, one French Tunisian and the other Israeli Tunisian, were killed, along with 1 police officer who died at the scene and another in hospital on Wednesday. 4 more police were injured, 1 critically, hospital sources said, along with 4 other visitors. So there was this terror attack. 2 Jewish people were killed. And just 4 days after this attack, just 4 days, the Tunisian president, Kais Saied, he compared the Jewish state to Nazi Germany. Yes, that is absolutely disgusting anti-Semitism. He said this, quote, while Tunisians protected Jews during the Holocaust, today elderly women and children are being bombed in Gaza. Absolutely atrocious statement. Rabbi Pinchas Goldschmidt, he is the president of the Conference of European Rabbis. He called on European governments to condemn Said's statement, which he said implies, quote, that the Jews of Tunisia are responsible for the bombing of Gaza. He said, through such wanton remarks, the president continues to incite further hatred and even attacks against the country's Jewish community, heaven forbid. Since the attack, the Jewish community of Djerba has not been visited or contacted by any members of the government. The Tunisian president, together with the relevant authorities, should instead be offering support to the Jewish community and working to ensure its safety. So, unfortunately, it appears that the Tunisian government have made themselves very clear, and they have displayed an absolutely disgusting amount of anti-Semitism. I want to tell you about the Israel Bible Book of Psalms, the ultimate prayer companion that will transform your spiritual journey. Picture this, the first ever Book of Psalms in Hebrew and English, complete with a verse-by-verse English transliteration. That's right, you'll be able to read, pronounce, and understand every single Hebrew word in Psalms. With this incredible edition in your hands, get ready to pray like the legendary King David himself. Immerse yourself in the beauty of the Psalms and watch your prayers take flight. You might be asking, what's transliteration? Well, it's an English spelling of a non-English word, like writing out shalom using English letters for the Hebrew word shalom. In this book, every single word in Psalms is transliterated for you. That's over 30,000 Hebrew words made accessible for you to read and pronounce. And that's not all. The English translation in this new edition is a 100% accurate representation of the original Hebrew text of Psalms. It's the world's most authentic and readable English version of King David's prayers. Immerse yourself in the amazing poetic beauty of the Psalms. With this brand new edition, you'll understand God's word on a whole new level. Here's the best part. For a limited time only, our friends at the Israel Bible are offering an exclusive discount to our viewers here at the Israel Guys. Use the code IsraelGuys at checkout to get $20 off the retail price of $39.99. That's right, you can embark on this incredible spiritual journey, unlocking the richness of the Psalms, and save $20 while you're at it. Don't miss out on this amazing opportunity. Click the link in the description below to purchase today. So in some other news, the IDF recently hosted 9 ambassadors from the UN. They said this on Twitter. They said, quote, "We hosted 9 UN ambassadors from Chad, Guinea, Bissau, Laos, Marshall Islands, Philippines, South Sudan, Tuvalu, Fiji, and Antigua and Barbuda, led by Israel's ambassador to the UN, Gilad Erdan, to discuss the recent military operation Shield and Arrow and the current threats the IDF faces." They also, while they were there, they visited a Hezbollah terrorist tunnel in northern Israel and an Iron Dome battery at the Palmachim AFB. So before we close out, there's some good news. Rabbi Avraham Paley was released from the hospital just yesterday, more than 3 months after he was seriously injured in a terrorist ramming attack in the Jerusalem neighborhood of Ramot. You guys might remember it was a horrific attack in which actually his 7-year-old and 5-year-old sons were both horribly murdered. Also, 3 people total were murdered in the attack. It was Asher Menachem and Yaakov Yisrael Paley, and then Alter Shlomo Liederman. Horrible attack, but Rabbi Paley was in a coma for about 2 weeks after the attack, and then he was only informed of his son's fate after he regained consciousness. Absolutely horrific story. 2 weeks after he was injured, that was when he found out about his 2 sons being murdered. Rabbi Paley was hospitalized at Hadassah Medical Center for over 90 days, initially in the intensive care unit before then being moved to the rehabilitation unit. Hadassah Medical Center Director Professor Yoram Weiss said, quote, "The Paley family was an inspiration to all of us in the way they have dealt with the terrible disaster that befell the family. We strengthened the hands of the family. All of Hadassah is excited today to see Rabbi Paley leaving the medical center and return to his beloved family after a challenging period of complex treatments." Guys, that's all for today. Make sure to subscribe, get the conversation going down below. We'd love to hear what you think in the comments. And as always, tune out the fake news and tune in to what is actually happening in the land of Israel. We'll be back every Monday through Friday with your direct connection to the land and people of Israel.